Hey guys, it's me. It's Miss Cheka. I apologize. I think I said 4, which was 15 minutes ago. And I just had a lot of parent and kid stuff that I had to do. But I'm here now. I have survived the first day of school. I am still intact. I am more tired than I remember being in a long, long time, but I think it was good. Okay, let's do a little bit of our book, Esperanza Rising. And let's see where we are, because I kind of lost my place. Oh, we left right at this kind of cliffhanger that there was a dust storm coming right during their party. Okay. Una tormenta de polvo, dust storm, said Irene. Hurry. They picked up the babies and ran inside. Irene closed the door and began shutting the windows. What's happening? Asked Esperanza. A dust storm, like nothing you have ever seen before, said Melina. They are awful. What about Mama and Hortensia and the others, Alfonso and Miguel? They are in the fields. They will send trucks for them, said Irene. Esperanza looked out the window. Thousands of acres of tilled soil were becoming food for La Tormenta, the storm, and the sky was turning into a brown, swirling fog. Already she could see the trees just a few yards away. Then the sound began, softly at first, like gentle rain, then harder as the wind blasted the tiny grains of sand against the windows and metal roofs. The dirt showered against the cabin, pitting everything in its path. Get away from the window, warned Irene. The dirt and wind can break the glass. The finer dust seeped inside, and they tried to seal the door by stuffing rags under it. Esperanza couldn't stop thinking about the others. Isabel was at school. The teachers would take care of her. But Mama, Hortensia, and Josefina were in the open shed. She hoped the trucks would bring them soon. And the fields, she could only imagine Alfonso and Juan and Miguel. Could they breathe? Irene, Melina, and Esperanza sat on the mattress in the front room trying to calm the babies. There was no relief from the heat in the closed room, and soon the air was hazy. Irene dampened some towels so they could wipe the babies in their own faces. When they talked to one another, they tasted earth. How long does it last? Asked Esperanza. Sometimes hours, said Irene. The wind will stop first, and then the dust. Esperanza heard a meowing from the door. She ran to it and, pushing hard against the wind, opened it a crack. Isabel's kitten, Chiquita, darted in. There was no trace of her orange fur. The cat was powdered brown. The babies soon fell asleep, drowsy from the heavy air. Irene was right. The wind stopped, but the dust still swirled as if propelled by its own power. Irene and Melina left with Melina's baby covered beneath a blanket and rushed to their cabin. Esperanza waited, nervously pacing the room and worrying about the others. The school bus came first. Isabel burst into the cabin crying, "Mi gata chiquita!" That means gata is like a girl cat. Esperanza hugged her. She is fine, but very dirty and hiding under the bed. Are you all right? Yes, said Isabel. We got to sit in the cafeteria all afternoon and play games with erasers on our heads, but I was worried about Chiquita. The door opened again, and Mama walked into the cabin, her skin covered with an eerie brown chalkiness, her hair dusted like the cat's fur. Oh, Mama! I'm fine, mija, she said, coughing. Hortensia and Josefina followed, and Isabel put her hands on her cheeks in worried surprise. You look like raccoons, she said. All of their faces had circles of pink around their eyes where they had squinted against the dust. Do you guys remember when we had the nerd hangout about words from the new world and words from the old world? And the word in Spanish for raccoon is mapache, which comes from Manila. I love that word, mapache. The trucks could not find their way to the shed, so all we could do was sit and wait, said Hortensia. We hid behind some crates and buried our heads, but it did not help much. Josefina took the babies next door, and Hortensia and Mama began washing their arms in the sink, making muddy water. Mama started to cough. What about Alfonso and Juan and Miguel? Asked Esperanza. If the trucks could not get to us, they could not get to the fields. We will have to wait, said Hortensia, exchanging a worried look with Mama. A few hours later, Alfonso, Juan, and Miguel arrived, their clothes stiff and brown, all of them coughing and clearing their throats every few minutes. Their faces were so encrusted with dry dirt that they reminded Esperanza of cracked pottery. They took turns rinsing in the sink, the pile of brown clothes growing in the basket. When Esperanza looked outside, she could almost see the trees, but the dust was still thick in the air. Mama had a coughing spasm, and Hortensia tried to settle her with a glass of water. When the adults all finally sat down at the table, Esperanza asked, "What happened with the strike?" "Oh, there was no strike," said Alfonso. "We heard that they were all ready, that there were hundreds of them. They had their signs, but the storm hit. The cotton is next to the ground, and the fields are now buried in dirt and cannot be picked. Tomorrow, they will have no jobs because of an act of God." "What will we do tomorrow?" asked Esperanza. "The grapes are higher off the ground," said Alfonso. "The trunks of the vines are covered, but the fruit were not expected. The grapes are ready and cannot wait. So tomorrow, we will go back to work." The next morning, the sky was blue and calm, and the dust had left the air. It had settled on the world, covering everything like a suede blanket. Everyone who lived at the camp shook out the powdery soil, went back to work, and came home again, as if nothing had happened. In a week, they finished cutting the grapes. Then when they finished packing the grapes, they were already talking about preparing for potatoes. The camp routine repeated itself like the regimented roads in the fields. Very little seemed to change, thought Esperanza, except the needs of the earth. And Mama had changed, because after the storm, she never stopped coughing. "Mama, you're so pale," said Esperanza. Mama carefully walked into the cabin as if she were trying to keep her balance and slumped into a chair in the kitchen. "Oh, I've got somebody in the chat box. Hello, but I don't know who you are from your username, so you got to give me a little hint or just tell me." Hortensia was bustling behind her. "I am going to make her chicken soup with lots of garlic. She had to sit down at work today because she felt faint, but it is no wonder because she is not eating. Look at her. She has lost weight. She has not been herself since that storm, and that was a month ago. I think she should go to the doctor." "Mama, listen to her," pleaded Esperanza. Mama looked at her weakly. "I am fine, just tired. I'm not used to the work, and I've told you doctors are very expensive." "Irene and Melina are coming over after dinner to crochet," said Esperanza. She thought that would cheer Mama. "You sit with them," said Mama. "I'm going to lie down until the soup is ready because I have a headache. Then after dinner, I'll go straight to bed and get a good rest. I'll be fine." She coughed, got up, and slowly walked from the room. Hortensia looked at Esperanza, shaking her head. A few hours later, Esperanza stood over Mama. "Your soup is ready, Mama." But she didn't move. "Mama, dinner," said Esperanza, reaching for her arm and shaking her gently. Mama's arm was burning. Her cheeks were flushed red. She wasn't waking. Esperanza felt panic squeezing her, and she screamed, "Hortensia!" The doctor came. He was American, light and blonde, but he spoke perfect Spanish. "He looks very young to be a doctor," said Hortensia. "Well, overdramatic. Welcome to Nerd Hangout. It was very nice to meet you. But we're also in a very, we're in a very scary part of this book because Mama, it sounds like her health has really been affected by breathing in this dust storm. He has come to the camp before and people trust him, said Irene. There are not many doctors who will come out here. Alfonso, Juan, and Miguel sat on the front steps waiting. Okay, chat box friends, I will not be here in 38 minutes, but the video will be up and you can still watch it. But Nerd Hangout usually lasts about 20 minutes. Isabel sat on the mattress, her eyes worried. Esperanza could not sit still. She paced near the bedroom door, trying to hear what was going on inside. When the doctor finally came out, he looked grim. He walked over to the table where all the women sat. Esperanza followed him. The doctor signaled for the men and waited until everyone was inside. She has valley fever. What does that mean? Asked Esperanza. It's a disease of the lungs that is caused by dust spores. Sometimes when people move to this area and aren't used to the air here, the dust spores get into their lungs and cause an infection. But we were all in the dust storm, said Alfonso. When you live in this valley, everyone inhales the dust spores at one time or another. Most of the time, the body can overcome the infection. Some people will have no symptoms at all. Some will feel like they have the flu for a few days, and others, for whatever reason, cannot fight the infection and get very sick. All right, bye my chat box friend. How sick? Asked Hortensia. Esperanza sat down. She may have a fever on and off for weeks, but you must try to keep it down. She will cough and have headaches and joint aches. She might get a rash. Can we catch it from her, the babies? Asked Josefina. No, said the doctor, it isn't contagious. And the babies and young children have probably had a mild form of it already, without you even knowing. Once the body fights off the infection, it doesn't get it again. For those who live here most of their lives, they are naturally immunized. It is hardest on adults who move here and are not accustomed to agricultural dust. How long until she is well? Asked Esperanza. The doctor's face looked tired. He ran his hand through his short blonde hair. There are some medicines she can take, but even then, if she survives, it might take 6 months for her to get her full strength back. Esperanza felt Alfonso behind her, putting his hands on her shoulders. She felt the blood drain from her face. She wanted to tell the doctor that she could not lose Mama too, that she had already lost Papa, and that Abuelita was too far away. Her voice strangled with fear. All she could do was whisper the doctor's uncertain words, if she survives. Las papas, which means the potatoes. Esperanza almost never left Mama's side. She sponged her with cool water and fed her teaspoons of broth throughout the day. Miguel offered to take over the sweeping job for her, but Esperanza wouldn't let him. Irene and Melina arrived each morning to check on Mama and to take the babies. Alfonso and Juan put up extra layers of newspaper and cardboard in the bedroom to keep out the November chill, and Isabel drew pictures to hang on the walls because she did not think the newspaper looked pretty enough for Mama. The doctor came back a few weeks later with more medicine. She is not getting worse, he said, shaking his head, but she is not getting better either. Mama drifted in and out of fitful sleep, and sometimes she called out for Abuelita. Esperanza could barely sit still and often paced around the small room. One morning, Mama said weakly, Esperanza. Esperanza ran to her and took her hand. Abuelita's blanket, she whispered. Esperanza pulled her valise from under the bed. She had not opened it since before the dust storm and saw that the fine brown powder had even found its way deep inside, as it had found its way into Mama's lungs. She lifted out the crocheting that Abuelita had started the night Papa died. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Had it only been a few months? She stretched out the zigzag rows. They reached from one side of Mama's bed to the other, but were only a few hands wide, looking more like a long scarf than the beginnings of a blanket. Esperanza could see Abuelita's hairs woven in so that all her love and good wishes would go with them forever. She held the crochet to her face and could still smell the smoke from the fire and the faintest scent of peppermint. Esperanza looked at Mama, breathing uneasily, her eyes closed. It was clear she needed Abuelita. They both needed her. But what was Esperanza to do? She picked up Mama's limp hand and kissed it. Then she handed the strip of zigzag rose to Mama, who clutched it to her chest. What had Abuelita told her when she'd given her the bundle of crocheting? And then she remembered. She had said, "Finish this for me, Esperanza. And promise me you'll take care of Mama." After Mama fell asleep, Esperanza picked up the needlework and began where Abuelita had left off. 10 stitches up the mountain, add 1 stitch. 9 stitches down the valley, skip 1. Her fingers were more nimble now, and her stitches were more even. The mountains and valleys in the blanket were easy. But as she reached a mountain, she was heading back down into a valley again. Would she ever escape the valley she was living in? This valley of Mama being sick? What else had Abuelita said? After she had lived many mountains and valleys, they would be together again. She bent over her work, intent, and when her hair fell into her lap, she picked it up and wove it into the blanket. She cried when she thought of the wishes that would go into the blanket forever, because she was wishing that Mama would not die. The blanket grew longer, and Mama grew more pale. Women in the camp brought her extra skeins of yarn, and Esperanza didn't care that they didn't match. Each night, when she went to bed, she put the growing blanket back over Mama, covering her in hopeful color. Lately, it seemed Esperanza could not interest Mama in anything. "Please, Mama," she begged, "you must eat more soup. Please, Mama, you must drink more juice. Mama, let me comb your hair. It will make you feel better." But Mama was listless, and Esperanza often found her weeping in silence. It was as if, after all of her hard work in getting them there, her strong and determined mother had given up. Okay. Y'all, this book is a tearjerker. This has a lot of emotions in it. Nobody told me this one. No, that's not true. Christian Alexander did absolutely tell me that this book was just filled with emotions. And now I thought that I had read this book already. And now I'm realizing, like, there's no way I had read all of this book, because this is so... Okay. We're going to pause for like a little minute. Because I want to talk about this mountain and valley thing. So first of all, I mean, this is just a hard part, because Esperanza is so worried, and she's been through a lot. And it's hard to worry when you're the kid taking care of the parent, because usually the parent takes care of you, right? But, you know, Esperanza has a lot of people who love her and who do take care of her. I think that this is really beautiful, this symbol and this imagery that we've been given. So we've already talked a lot about symbols in this book. But this mountains and valley one, it's a symbol in 2 ways. So one, Abuelita had used that as a passage of time, right? So the more mountains and valleys that you crochet into the pattern, the more time goes by. And the more time goes by, the closer that they are to the time that they'll be together again. So it would be like if we had all started a crocheting project at the beginning of the quarantine and shutdown, and then we kept at it and kept at it and kept at it, it would show how long the quarantine had lasted and coronavirus had lasted, but the longer it is, that would also mean that it was closer to being done, right? But the other way that it's a symbol is mountains and valleys of kind of emotions. And it even says in that sentence, when she says, would she ever escape this valley that she's living in, this valley of mama being sick? So if a valley is a low place, right, then here is this low place of mama being sick, right? And a mountain would be a high place where like happy things are happening. So this book has had a lot of mountains and valleys so far. Okay, I'm going to end there for today. I will see you guys tomorrow. I will try and be on time at 4 o'clock. But either way, the video is up for you guys, and I hope that you are having a good day. Eat your fruits and vegetables. Hug your families. All right. Bye, guys.